John, thank you so much for bringing me to your favourite bar. I have to look at my notes here. The Moose Vert in Austria.
Yes, and thanks for having me, Gary. Delighted to be here with you. The Moose Vert. In fairness, you're looking at a good vision of the inside. It's a big sprawling bar with many different parts to it, and I don't think I've ever seen it in an empty state. I've been outside a lot. Trying to get in can be quite difficult.
And are we inside now? Am I inside now, or am I
You're
outside?
inside. To the best of my memory, you're inside now. I haven't been there in about 5 years, but to the best of my memory, you're inside now at this stage, and it's a place where, in fairness, I'm still in awe of the barmen. They carry around trays with about 40 drinks on it. The place is heaving, and yet they never spill one. And they know. I saw a lad one time try to lift one off it, and the waiter turned around and go, "You didn't pay for that. Put it back."
It's amazing, but good lounge staff and good barmen are photographic memory, just to remember who ordered the stuff.
Yeah, they phenomenal skill in there. But it's a place where, we when I've been out there, you ski down at the end of the day. You go into, there's a crazy kangaroo, as it's called, just above it. But the Moose Fort, I've had more fun in there than anywhere else. And
you ski in, you ski
out.
And, sorry, skiing out. So you go in one state of verticality, and and what's the ski? How far do you have to go to get home?
Ski out, it's about 100 to 150 meters probably down the slope, and it's a good run. Like it's not a gradual slope. It's steep enough in parts, and you can get up a fair amount of speed if you're not careful. And the snowplow doesn't work anymore at that stage.
Would you be a comfortable green, red, blue, or black skier?
My preference would be kind of blue-red, in that area. I can't go too far wrong. I'll get down the other slopes if I have to, but it won't be comfortable.
And of course, this ski home probably seems like a severe red on occasion.
Oh, it's a black. It can go beyond if you've been there for long enough, and which you lose track of time when you come out. Like the funny one coming out is, have I still got my own skis? You've clicked into them and you're looking, going, well, I fit in them. They must be mine. And the next day you get up to go, they're not my skis.
But do you know, I haven't been skiing in I don't know how long, but the one thing that you do come back from every ski holiday is with memories of experiences, where sometimes you go on a sun holiday and about 7 days are all the same. It's like one big day, Groundhog Day. It's one of the big differences, isn't it? That there's so many things.
The great part, I think, about ski holidays is it's a family holiday as well. Like the whole family wants to come. Your teenagers aren't totally fucking. Now I don't have any yet, but they're not afraid of hanging around with mom and dad, or they're not embarrassed by you and trying to go off somewhere else. You'll ski into the bar, and I've seen it with friends where they brought out their teenagers, and next thing they're standing beside you ordering a pint, and you're having a good laugh with them.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the places you went during the day and the things you did, and you bond on one of those holidays, and it doesn't have to be alcohol related, but it helps.
Enough time away from each other, probably helpful for all relationships. Enough time away to bring home a few stories.
Yeah,
which is always good. So imagine if we could find somewhere to sit. Well, maybe we're standing and
to be down the back, and you'd be or outside sitting at one of the tables where there's somebody standing up in front of you dancing. They think they're Elton John or John Travolta or somebody going hard at it. But you're all you're doing is moving your pint around to make sure they don't spill it on you.
So some paddy comes along, whacks into the 5G antenna, wipes out all of everyone's phones except 3 apps. What are they?
Well, I'm going to keep the papers. One of the paper apps going. I love just seeing what's happening in the world during the day, catching up. The other one would be a podcast, so that if I got totally bored, I can listen to somebody trying to tell me the answers to the world problems. And finally, it'll be the ski tracks, so that I can look back over the years going, Jesus, did I actually do that back then? I went that fast, or I managed to do that many kilometers in a day, and look at it now going, oh yeah, well, I'm getting slower. Oh yeah, and I'm definitely not able to do as long. And what I regret, well, sorry, not regret, but it's a pity that it didn't exist, say 20 or 15 years ago, having the ski app, because I would have used it coming out of the Moose Fort. It would have still been on to go. How quick did he go down?
It would have got you home. You could rate yourself. You'd be like,
I could have rated myself big time. I'd say it would have told some fascinating stories, I'm sure, about
your journeys home.
Yes. It would have made for interesting conversation the next day if we looked at it.
And what about the podcast? Podcasts are an interesting one, aren't they? Because they're hugely popular. When would you listen? Would you listen when you're walking or driving, or where do you listen to your podcast?
It's only been in the last 2 years, I suppose, I've started, or the last year really. Lockdown helped a bit in terms of picking it up, and I listened to a few different ones. Sometimes when I'm driving and there is nothing on the radio that you want to listen to, there's nothing interesting. Other times, if I was sitting at home cooking, I'd put on the podcast and let it blare away in the background and listen to it. I find some very interesting ones, and I also find a bit like the internet, you can go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And you can start listening to more left or right wing stuff, and they'll try and convince you of these various theories that are spot on, and this is why the world is going to implode, or this is why all these people are against you, kind of stuff. And I've done that once or twice where I've let the podcast take me to a new guy or a new thing, and you go, Jesus, yeah, I can see how people are brought down a rabbit hole that you just start to believe everything they say.
Yeah. Isn't it funny? I do the same with Spotify, where I like a song, and if you follow the thread, it say, oh, if you like this song, you might like this song, or you might like this genre. And it's a very positive thing, because the way as you get a bit older, you tend to listen to the same old tunes.
Yeah.
Same old tracks. And even if you can, my kids are a bit older, even if you can find that type of a tune, but more contemporary, you can even introduce them to a tune or two.
I know, yeah. Well, in fairness, they can introduce you to some great tunes as well.
Oh, do you know? Listen, I know yours are a little slightly younger, but you haven't yet had the great, I don't know, Elton John song that has been re-recorded that your daughter is trying to convince you was actually just made last week.
Yeah, I've just discovered his dad, and how could you know that this exists?
How do you know the words?
Yeah, all my nieces and nephews are like that, kind of going, what?
So there you go. Oh yeah, that's 20 years ago. And even then, 20 years ago, it was a remake from the 40s,
Yeah.
But we spoke previously, and I think every generation deserves the right to say at least that they've invented music.
Yes.
Even though we know they haven't.
Yeah, I know you have to let them believe that something is changing for them, or that it's a new dawn out there, and they can shape or influence the world in some way.
I was listening to Quincy Jones's biography, and it's incredible because I never knew until I read his or listened to on Audible. There's only 12 fundamental notes.
Yeah,
12. That's it.
Yeah.
Now all the others are all variations of it, but it's extraordinary. It's a bit like the world we're in, data this, data that. 12 notes can create effectively millions upon millions of combinations of permutations. It's a magical thing.
Oh, it's phenomenal what you can do with with what seems like simple stuff, but if you can pull it together, and it's a skill that you have to admire in anybody. Like, I'm not musical. I love listening to music. I love looking at art. Like I love the skill that people can bring to drawing something that I can see good stuff in it, but I could never do it. I'd never be capable of as a architect friend told me one time. I said, hey, what makes a great architect? And he told me a great story. He says, John, if I picked up that glass ball over there and I dropped it on the ground, you and I would see shards. Another architect would actually see a design for an all-encompassing building, and he'd be able to reconstruct it in a way that would make a new globe, but it'd be done using the pieces in a different format. And I'm going, okay, he's described it quite well there for me. I'm going, yeah, I wouldn't be capable of deconstructing and reconstructing in that way. But that's everybody has, you know, their own kind of thing. They're good at something.
But it's like it's like sport, isn't it? And I know you're a sports fan. It's like there's the ball, it's the same size. There's a pair of shoes, they're the same size. There's a 6 foot man, same weight, and one fella can score a goal from 42 yards, and the other fella can't even kick it 2 yards.
Yeah, and that's like I always I played rugby. Obviously, my prowess at GAA wasn't great, and my prowess at soccer was even worse. So rugby was, and there was a reason. There were two of us on the pitch were called brute force and ignorance, and I won't say which one I was, but the game
was that on the back of your shirt? Was that?
No. Thankfully, back then they didn't put all that stuff on. It cost money to have it done, and your mother wasn't able to sit down and stitch stuff on for you. She, I do
That's
remember
a lot of letters.
Oh, that wasn't. That was. I remember she made me a headband one time because she was getting worried about my ears, and I'd come home and the ears would be red raw, and they were starting to cauliflower. So she made the headband, and I think it lasted for about 3 or 4 matches, and I came back and there was no sign of it, and I got the lecture about how much work she'd put into the headband and where it was. And I remember going back, going, right lads, which one of you has? If I don't bring that home today, I ain't playing any more rugby.
But isn't it interesting when we start talking about sport? And I had a chat with the lad Fergus McFadden recently.
Yeah,
an Irish rugby player and scored tries.
Lovely guy.
Lovely guy. And you know, it's common enough old story. Wasn't always the most talented. Wasn't always the most standout, but applied himself probably more than anyone in the peer group.
I've done over the years. I've done a couple of cycles with former rugby internationals, and you know, 1 or 2 were current actually at the time. But it was phenomenal to see their doggedness is probably the wrong word, but it is doggedness. They just kept going. They wouldn't stop. And I remember 2 internationals in particular, a Scottish and an Irish guy. I won't say who, but the 2 guys had left the hotel late one morning, and we were heading to Leenane for the lunchtime break. And the 2 lads decided to have a race. And they raced over the mountain, and they were side by side most of the way, and they had say 1 kilometer or whatever left to get into Leenane. And they were equally as fit, and 2 savage guys.
Yeah.
And when they arrived in, I ended up sitting beside the lads. We were having a chat, and said, "Well, okay, who won the race?" And one of the guys says, "Yeah, he won it." And I said, "Sure, you would have thought you were the fitter guy. Would have given." "Yeah," he said, "I am." But he got inside my head. He said, for 5 kilometers, he was working on me. And in the last kilometer, he started telling me about how this looked a little shaky. And that's when I learned that, wow, well, you before that, I suppose, but it really came home that it's the psychology these guys, like one is as good as the other nearly.
Sure.
But it's their ability to get inside the other one's head and weaken it or make him think that he's not quite as good as he thinks he is, or that there's a little niggle there or a flaw, and it makes a massive difference, that psychological ability.
Do you think yourself, having played at a good level physically, you had the size, you had the other things. Now when I look at sport, I see an awful lot of science. I see an awful lot of external head coaches, I'd call them. And I listened to the likes of the kicker for Ireland, Johnny Sexton, who would happily go out and kick 1,000 balls.
Yeah.
Repetitive. You know, it's all about, to your point, getting inside your head or not letting stuff get inside your head.
It is. Well, look, I personally, I think sports has changed a lot in the years. Like, I went to a talk with Jack Kyle there. It's probably 10 years ago at this stage, just before the actually more than 10 years. It's just before they won the next Grand Slam.
Yeah.
And Jack Kyle was describing how they won the Grand Slam back in the what was it, the 50s or something. Yeah. And it was the most interesting talk. He said, right, we went to France. We were late getting on the boat, blah, blah. And we arrived over the tactics for the French game was one long ball, one short ball, and we'll see what happens in between. So for them, and that's where I think sports is key for all of us. It was to develop you as a person. It was something you added into your overall, like, for him, medicine was the key, but sport was the getaway thing. Now sports is a commercial entity, and it has to be get inside the head, do more, get the guys, because it's all about money now, really, you know, or performance.
Finite differences between.
Well, you look at the under-20s match there on Friday night, brilliant to watch, because okay, the lads have been coached, they've learned a lot, but there's different skill levels throughout it. So there's mistakes made here and there's mistakes made there, which opens up the game, and it means you see more dynamics going on. And just listening to Off the Ball last night, they made a great analogy on it, and I've always thought that's what it is. It's now a chess game.
Yeah.
And each team knows exactly which player is going to move. So you've only got 2 or 3 moves that you can make as in the professional game that are going to make a difference. You're hopefully you see the other team make one little mistake and that gives you an opening. But it's a real game of chess now between them. And your mental ability is key in that.
And the other thing is the faith in the others around you.
Yeah.
To execute. Can I ask you, as a successful business person also, when you're trying to build a team yourself, does it help you greatly from having been through a sport where everyone wants to be the try scorer or the kicker over, but somebody has to do the grunt work? Soccer was more my thing, and we all wanted to be the center forward, but somebody had to be left full. And eventually you get to a certain age where you're just happy to be playing. And if it means I'm playing left full and I'm on the team, I'm taking it. Yeah. Do you see it quickly enough in fellas and girls coming in if they played a solo sport maybe, or a team sport? Is it something you look at or you see, or can you comment?
You do. You definitely see it. And what you notice with the older people is they've stuck with the team sport for longer. GAA is probably the only one now where the lads stick with it for longer. Soccer to a certain extent, but rugby, they're dropping out in their 20s now. Like, it's either after school or if they go on and play for a club, you know, they're not playing for that long because work commitments and everything else are taken over. So those guys have a great, they understand team dynamics and they understand the way those things work. You have a better team dynamics with the older person because they've been in it longer. The younger guys have less of, they have an understanding. They get the captain and they get the manager and so on, but they haven't had the change over the years of, well, this guy is getting slower and that guy is actually improving with age and so on. That unfortunately is kind of is being lost on some of them. But in fairness, the GAA guys have it, particularly the club guys. They definitely see what longevity and sticking with it means in the overall.
And obviously you then talk professional and amateur, and to your point, the rugby lads, some of them get badly injured, so they have no choice. Others basically look at the risk reward side of things and step off. The GAA lads, they never get much anyway, so there has to be just passion to a great degree. Yeah,
it's passion and club. But another guy, friend, in fairness, and he mentioned it. He said, you know, it didn't happen to him, but it did happen to somebody in his club a year or two before, where they were the guy who missed the point that would have gotten the county final. And he says, that poor bugger, when he is buried in 50, 60 years' time, somebody will stand at the funeral and talk about that. It won't be how many games he played. You're a hero, and you're also forgotten in equal measure in the game. And it's a great look from a sports perspective. I think GAA is brilliant because it gives you a rounding. It gives you more than just working in a job. you're out, you're dealing with other things, and that I think is where sports, coming back to what I was saying, that's what sports was originally about. Yeah. Now it's kind of, that's gone out of the overall scheme of it.
It's interesting you say that, because now I guess when I meet people that played soccer with me and that, we rarely talk about the cups, the medals, the whole lot, and wherever we won or lost.
Yeah,
it's about the Tuesday and Thursday and the crack and that feel of the whatever it was, about the camaraderie or the few beers afterwards, or how's your wife, and all that type of stuff. That, and it's a different tribe. It's a different tribe to the one you work with, maybe.
Yeah, totally. That's why you see a lot of lads, personally, I think anyway, getting into cycling and stuff like that. Running isn't quite the same. You don't get the same. You're not a team in cycling, but you're all going along together about the same pace. In running, everybody's a kind of spread out. You can't get your breath to talk, but we all go out in our Lycra now, and
are you there? Are you on the bike?
Well, I haven't been on it now. I have about 2 years or so since I've been out proper. You can see plenty of additional flab.
I see. I live here in Enniskerry, and I see them doing their damnedest to get up the hill here.
Oh yeah.
And I often think that on the big low loaders, they have wide load on the back of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we might be putting them on a few bits of the old light.
You could probably put that on me at the moment. In fairness, they're going up. In fairness, I have to give it. Like skiing, I'm a downhill specialist.
I know,
There's no problem. Gravity works brilliant.
John, we could talk probably for another 15 hours and still not get to anywhere near the interesting parts of what we could talk about. It's been short and sharp, and like always with this show, it's great because you end up talking and meandering and coming back, and you get a sense of the person. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure on a number of fronts. And thanks a million as well for joining Host in Ireland this year. It's your first year.
First year in, and looking forward to it, and all the various activities that would be.
And I hope when we come back in November or wherever, you felt a sense of teamwork as well, because there's an awful lot of bits and pieces of the digital infrastructure chain that come together. And I think what we find is we're probably better in the collective than we are all, even with your competitors.
Oh, I know. What I don't know that I have that many competitors in there anyway, but I'm lucky in that respect. But I have a feeling like it'll be like the local club team. We'll all be coming together to win the county championship against
that's
whatever the county, be it France or it'll be international in this case, but that'll be
that's what a lot of them say. I have no problem ripping your eyes out when I'm playing Munster versus Leinster, but when we go up to Aviva and we're going to be
we're one team. We're singing off the same hymn sheet.
So thanks, John. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks very much, Garry. Appreciate it.